All right, welcome back to Relatively Conscious. My name is Antonius Brown.
Irvin Bryant.
Shout out to DJ for making our beats.
That's at DW Made That on social media.
And follow us on social media at
Kinda Woke on Instagram and Twitter. Relatively Conscious everywhere else.
Gotcha. All right, so real quick, I have a real spicy name for my topic. So it's Black people, politics, and the disease of what have you done for me lately, right? And so the impetus of me want to talk about this was Joe Biden has his first day executive orders, and I'm gonna read a couple of them off to you. He did a 100-day mask challenge, basically like a challenge to get people to wear masks. He re-engaged with the WHO, World Health Organization. He extended the eviction moratorium, extended the student loan interest pause, and he rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement. And then he did some other stuff about rolling back Donald Trump's environmental policies, basically. And then he launched a initiative to advance racial equality. And so Sean King responded to that by saying, Joe Biden promised he would attack mass incarceration on day one, and he hasn't. So he lied to us, basically. And what is your response to that? Because that to me feels like either Sean King is stupid, or maybe I'm not. Maybe I don't realize the argument he's making.
No. You get it. Sean King is a well-known opportunist.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's textbook opportunism, because I don't even know. Like, a lot of people don't like Joe Biden, and they've been consistently not liking Joe Biden since 2018, right? Like at the very onset, people didn't like him, and that's okay. You don't have to like the president. You don't have to like even if you are a Democrat, you don't like him. But what he's doing is taking a quote that nobody took at verbatim, seriously, like, oh, day one, this is a priority. Like, I understand that. I would hold him to his feet to the fire of that being a priority, right? So in the first year, if he does nothing addressing criminal justice, then it's like, okay, you lied, right? But the idea of this is my day one, first thing, being literal, and every time they say that, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to a political rally, but they say that, they couldn't possibly, like, Barack Obama could not possibly address all the things he said he was going to address on day one. On day one, it's just not enough hours in the day. That's stupid. Yeah. And so when you're looking at the man who makes the bulk of his political capital, public, clout off of Black people dying, opportunism at its worst, then, I'm not surprised at all about him jumping out and saying what he said.
See, but another thing is that Sean King wasn't the only one. So a lot of people who are on the left are more progressive, or people who are considered to be activists. I use that term loosely because I don't know what qualifies someone to be an activist. There's no job application for that. A lot of other people who are activists who are they were slower to get on the Biden train. They also made the same point. And basically, the other thing is that some of them they didn't go as far as Sean King said that Joe Biden lied to us, but they were like, I saw one comment basically the environmental community and the people who were really the scientific community when it comes to COVID, they have been more active in getting Joe Biden to make sure that he did certain things. And the Black community just heard him say something, and therefore, but we didn't hold his feet to the fire, so therefore, that's why we didn't get what we wanted on day one. Yeah, that to me doesn't sound correct. What's your response to that?
Two things. One, the environmental, scientific community, not only do they have immediate, scientifically, coronavirus, the global pandemic, another reason. So not only everything's not going to get done on day one, because that's just a rhetorical device, but I don't know if you know this, but I don't leave the house, so global pandemic, kind of priority number one. And on the environmental tip, that is, I was listening to the BBC today on my commute home, and they were discussing environmental impacts. It was a science segment, the environmental impacts of the Trump administration. One of some of the largest impacts are really just him deregulating for very Trumpian purposes, i.e., the biggest example being the wall, the monument to the Trump legacy, and Biden immediately just stops. First thing, first day, stop construction on the wall. It's a waste of money. You're destroying land it's federally owned land, but it's land that's federally owned for the sake of being protected for the environment. And so, like, things like that and pollution regulations. One day, all I'm doing is undoing his executive order. That's easy.
Yeah.
Like, and it's immediate, and I can already, like, all right, conservationists, wildlife fund, all you people, get out of my face. I'm done. I did it. First day, you're done. Black people, ain't no way he could just, I'm done. Get out of my face. Unless he start giving out 40 acres and a mule, it's not going to happen. We're not in any kind of way that quickly. So unfortunately, our problems are bigger than coronavirus and the environmental impacts of the Trump administration. So it's just not going to happen.
Also, the Keystone Pipeline was one of the things he did on day one, too. And that's much easier to get done right off the bat. Just stop construction of the Keystone Pipeline. Pretty simple. But the reason I call it the disease of what have you done for me lately is because what it feels like to me, it sounds like the criticism people had against Obama, that because things didn't say, here you go, Black people, then there wasn't anything that cared about it, or it didn't feel as if it impacted it. Because the eviction moratorium is huge for Black and brown people because we are the main ones who are getting evicted. Or trying to tackle the coronavirus is huge for Black and brown people because we're dying at huge rates from coronavirus. But making that argument, it seems like people don't want to hear that because that's not flashy. I don't know. I don't want to say flashy because that sounds like we're immature, but it feels like it's not. It doesn't have a big neon sign to it that says, "Hey, Black people, this is for you."
I think we're suffering from the same disease, and I don't know what the remedy is that conservatives, and you're talking about Black people, so let's say white people, are suffering from when it comes to any kind of policy solution, wherein no nuanced approach is sufficient, right? And I don't want to call it that, like, oh, it's polarizing. It's not necessarily polarized. I don't think Black people need or are asking for, well, we are in some cases, but not always asking for the extremity. We want something that has a neon sign that says, here you go, Black people, 40 acres and a mule. Now, we talked about this before. Since the civil rights era, legislation has been less and less to solve Black problems. Legislation have been less and less tailored to say Black people this, because the laws and the system standing against us don't say Black people can do this, can't do this, right? So the solutions aren't, saying that, right? Back when we're trying to desegregate buses, it's like, okay, take the colored sign down. Wow, look at that. It's for us. But then, you talk about coronavirus relief, and then you get into a bunch of rhetoric that doesn't say us. It won't. It may help us, but it doesn't say that. And political discourse hijacked by demagogues and shock jocks on the radio. Need I say the name? Charlamagne God, Dr. Umar Johnson, not a shock jock on the radio, but on the internet. You got it. Yeah, I mean, we just have an appetite for something that is impossible, which is great for business, but horrible for our political consciousness.
Yes. So going back to it, one thing we heard a lot of times when we were at Prairie View was the idea of speaking truth to power. And there was this idea that, like, when you talk to politicians, you had to, like, I don't know, buff, stick out your chest and make sure whatever you said they took seriously, because you were coming with with a bravado to you that white people also come to their politicians with. And because we don't do that, and because we just kind of let politicians get off the hook easy, then therefore they don't do what we want them to do. Is that a mischaracterization of what happens? Is that missing some of the steps there? Because I feel like it is truthful that we do have to speak to politicians with a more readily attitude of, like, you're going to do what I'm asking you to do because I voted for you. But also, I feel like it's not so much the white politicians who have this problem, but maybe the Black ones, like the people who get elected in Black neighborhoods over and over and over again for 10 plus years, but haven't done any significant impacts to help the community.
Is it too simple? I guess that's the answer. I don't know that I guess the tone is just like the least of the problems. It's just like focusing on the wrong thing. Where I mean, political accountability is something that just isn't done by the community. And so like communities, like like there is a pro-life community, right? Like
Yeah.
so issue-based communities, and then of course special interest groups from that community spring up, and then there you go, you take it to Washington, you take it to your state legislature. But in the Black community, our advocacy groups are slim, weak, ill-funded, whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just no concentration of that. So when you just got people, just the community, right? No interest groups, no representation, no advocacy, just pulling up, saying stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. See you next time. You didn't donate to me, so you're on my face. It's just really easy to dismiss and really easy to lose. And especially when, again, you don't have these interest groups that are based around issues, right? Because the church has many issues, one of them being abortion, where the pro-life jumps out of that. But then there's also the taxation and protection of churches, and immigration and sex trafficking and all these other things that the church tends to lobby about. We're focused in that way, and the Black community doesn't have, at least effectively, any of those apparati that'll handle that. And so when you just be like, I gotta hold your feet to the fire, what have you done to me lately? And then you also focus, or there's a bunch of different voices, and the loudest voices or the most popular voices are focused on minutia, like the day one-ness of criminal justice reform. Then it's really easy to ignore you because you're not like actually you're not helping me help you.
Yeah. One thing I feel is that I think there's a lack. I'm just kind of closing it up. I think there's a lack of political intelligence. So, and this is when this is kind of where I get into the whole Black people shouldn't get checks or reparations, because when a community doesn't have financial intelligence, then therefore giving them checks is the easiest way for the government to say they did something without having an actual impact. I think our political intelligence is a problem here because we often see the issue, but don't understand the remedy has to be complex and it takes as many faceted, basically, right? And so when you talk about mass incarceration, you're not just talking about decriminalizing weed. You also have people who got hit up for gun ownership charges. Basically having a gun when you're a felon. That's what Lil Wayne got in trouble for, right? So you have these other issues that are more complex. You need to build more substantive institutions to address them, and that's really hard. It takes a really long time. And so when you talk to a politician who wants to get your vote and you say, well, I did you do this for me on the first day, the problem becomes that, I can't address some of these issues on the first day because some of them are so deep and ingrained that the best remedy I can give you is only a push in the right direction. You have to turn around and do everything else, and it feels kind of, and it feels anticlimactic to say that we don't know that we need to teach people more. We need civics classes, because that sounds, it puts all the stress on us. Yeah, the stress on us to do what's right, and it's not the politician's fault. Basically, what it feels like, and that also feels wrong because it's saying people who are powerless, or have the least amount of power in this conversation, have to do the most work. That's the argument that the left would give.
I think it's interesting that I think what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
But in this same conversation about what have you done for me lately, I think people are in a really confused state of mind where they'll say, okay, like the Union did not fight to free slaves. This is true, at least not primarily, right? So the white man did not free us; we freed ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, and that's how you feel. That's how you feel. And the unfortunate fact is, in which they want to deny, and I get why you would, because it's, like you said, anticlimactic. It's not just, it's not right, but it is real. That we are still in the business of freeing ourselves. And it, unfortunately, those who have the mindset of we have to free ourselves, by and large, the Black conservative, part of the community, a lot of them are, dare I say, extremists, ideologues. I'm talking the Nation, Hoteps, what's it called? Black Hebrew Israelites, and their help ourselves is separate, not help ourselves within the system. And so it's just really, really, really unpopular, because it's really, really, really uncomfortable, where it's like, oh, either we totally lean into the system, or we totally reject the system. And where we see, I guess, the solution is to, I don't want to depend on it, but I mean, you got to work the system, which means being partly independent and working, along with the government. And it hurts, and it sucks, and I don't have the money, and da 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 da. But if slaves freed themselves, then here we are.
The question would be, so the relative conscious question of the week: was Joe Biden wrong? Was Sean King wrong? And what are the remedies to address the power dynamic when it comes to asking for politicians to do something?
Do it to him, D.